Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. Russia tests nuclear-powered missile. Significant diplomatic setbacks reported. Trump's Southeast Asia trip focuses on diplomacy and economics. The trip involved a delicate balancing act. Sudan faces a complex situation of prosperity and conflict. The civil war highlights regional paradoxes. Russian strikes escalate, targeting Ukrainian infrastructure. Ukrainian resilience remains a key factor. Trump raises tariffs on Canada amid trade disputes. Trade tensions continue to escalate. Trump's Kuala Lumpur peace accord is a tentative step. The accord represents a fragile resolution. Georgia investigates uranium-related arrests and security concerns. International security is a major focus. U.S. strikes against drug vessels cause regional tensions. Controversy surrounds the military actions. Connolly is elected as Ireland's president. A new chapter begins for the nation. GOP expresses concern over the U.S. healthcare crisis. A shutdown intensifies the existing problems. Migrant sex offender released in error, arrested in London. Authorities acted swiftly to apprehend the individual. Kamala Harris suggests a potential 2028 presidential bid. Recent reflections indicate a possible future run. Schwarzenegger criticizes U.S. redistricting efforts. Concerns are raised about the changes. The East Wing demolition marks a legacy of change. The White House's transformation continues. BBC investigation leads to a charity boss's arrest. Exploitation of refugees is under scrutiny. Russia successfully tests nuclear-powered missile amidst diplomatic setbacks, and Russia has announced the successful test of its Burevestnik nuclear-powered cruise missile, a development highlighted by President Vladimir Putin following a failed diplomatic initiative and ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The missile, capable of traveling approximately 14,000 kilometers (700 miles, and evading missile defense systems, was tested on October 21st, according to a televised meeting with military commanders. Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov stated the test flight lasted 15 hours, demonstrating the weapon's capabilities. This test occurred amidst a breakdown in diplomatic efforts to secure a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. Following a summit proposed by U.S. President Donald Trump in Budapest, the U.S. imposed sanctions on Russia's Rosneft and Lukoil oil companies, further escalating tensions. Putin reportedly discussed the Burevestnik's test results with Gerasimov after the failed summit. The U.S. has been considering supplying Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine, a move Putin deemed an escalation. The failed summit underscored the difficulty in reaching a consensus between the parties. Russia's successful test of the Burevestnik represents a significant strategic development, potentially altering the dynamics of the conflict. The timing of the test coincides with heightened attacks on Ukrainian cities, including multiple drone and missile strikes targeting residential buildings and infrastructure in Kiev. These attacks have resulted in casualties and significant damage, prompting renewed calls from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for increased defensive capabilities, particularly Patriot missile defense systems. The collapse of the Trump-led summit and the subsequent sanctions highlight the continued impasse in diplomatic negotiations. Russia's continued military advancements, such as the Burevestnik test, are viewed as a demonstration of its capabilities and a potential deterrent. The situation remains volatile, with ongoing military operations and diplomatic maneuvering shaping the trajectory of the conflict. The development of the Burevestnik has added a new dimension to the conflict, raising concerns about the potential for escalation. Trump's Southeast Asia trip, a balancing act of diplomacy and economic interest. Of Donald Trump's recent trip to Southeast Asia aimed to solidify existing relationships and address emerging economic and geopolitical tensions, primarily through meetings with leaders in Malaysia, Japan, South Korea, and ASEAN nations. The core objective was to foster trade agreements, secure strategic alliances, and exert influence amidst shifting regional dynamics. Key to the trip was a meeting with Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, seeking to strengthen economic ties and address concerns surrounding U.S. investment in the country. Japan was a focal point, with Trump aiming to reinvigorate the U.S.-Japan alliance and finalize a $350 billion investment package. This included discussions with Prime Minister Lee Jae-myung, who faces challenges stemming from U.S. tariffs and concerns about South Korean investment. South Korea presented a complex scenario, marked by recent tensions stemming from a U.S. immigration raid and ongoing disputes over trade. Trump sought to address these issues while reinforcing the U.S.-South Korea alliance. ASEAN nations were also visited, aiming to bolster U.S. economic and political influence across the region. A significant element of the trip centered on the potential for a meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, a prospect that generated considerable speculation. While Trump expressed openness to such a meeting, The likelihood remained uncertain given North Korea's continued nuclear program and recent provocations. Throughout the journey, Trump's primary focus was on achieving tangible outcomes, including finalizing trade agreements, securing U.S. investment, and managing regional tensions. The trip underscored a delicate balancing act, navigating complex relationships while pursuing strategic objectives within a rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape. The success of the trip hinged on the ability to forge new partnerships and address existing challenges, ultimately shaping the future of U.S. engagement in Southeast Asia. The Sudanese civil war, a region of paradoxical plenty and desperate need. The ongoing conflict in Sudan presents a stark and tragic reality, particularly within the Jebel Mara region. Despite fertile lands capable of producing significant crops, oranges, peanuts, apples, and strawberries, widespread war and instability are preventing their distribution, leading to immense food shortages. Approximately 25 million Sudanese, half the population, face severe hunger, with over 600,000 experiencing famine. The conflict, largely centered around the control of resources and territory, has created a complex web of alliances and blockades. The Sudan Liberation Army Abdulwahid SLAW, controlling areas within Jebel Mara, remains neutral, operating for over 2 decades amidst the chaos. However, the region is increasingly isolated due to the actions of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, and allied Arab militias, who have blocked major roads, preventing access to national markets like El Fasher and Tyne. The RSF, controlling nearly all of Darfur and much of Kordofan, recently seized the army headquarters in El Fasher, a strategic victory that further consolidates their control and traps an estimated 300,000 residents. Farmers struggle to sell their produce, often discarding it due to spoilage and lack of transportation. Markets, such as Nortidi and Zalingay, operate sporadically, hampered by frequent armed robberies and checkpoints manned by both RSF fighters and Arab militias. These checkpoints, often demanding fees, further impede trade and humanitarian access. The situation in Jebel Mara is compounded by the displacement of civilians fleeing the fighting, seeking refuge in schools and clinics with limited aid. The SLAAW, despite relative peace within its territory, still witnesses the influx of displaced people. The RSF's actions, including accusations of genocide, have fueled the crisis. With over 150,000 deaths and 12 million refugees, Sudan's civil war represents one of the world's worst humanitarian disasters. The capture of El Fasher marks a pivotal moment, solidifying the RSF's dominance and intensifying the struggle for control of the nation. Russian strikes intensify, targeting civilian infrastructure and Ukrainian resilience. Recent news reports detail escalating Russian attacks on Ukrainian cities, primarily targeting civilian infrastructure and demonstrating a shift towards more aggressive tactics. The most significant event involves multiple strikes on Kiev, resulting in 3 fatalities and at least 32 injuries, including 6 children, after a drone struck a 9-story residential building. Damage was also reported to several other buildings in the capital. Simultaneously, a devastating drone attack hit the Honey Academy kindergarten in Kharkiv, resulting in 1 adult fatality and 9 injuries, including a woman with severe burns and another with a traumatic amputation. 48 children were rescued from the burning building, highlighting the bravery of Ukrainian emergency services. Oleksandr Volobyev, a major general from Ukraine's Civil Protection Service, played a crucial role in the Kharkiv rescue, carrying a young girl to safety amidst the chaos and destruction. His actions, captured on camera, have become a symbol of Ukrainian resilience. Fedor Onenko, a press officer with the Civil Defense Service, also assisted in the rescue effort, documenting the event with his helmet camera. Russia's increased attacks on civilian targets, particularly kindergartens, are viewed by Ukraine as deliberate acts of aggression. The use of Iranian-designed shade drones, capable of carrying a 50 kg payload, has become a recurring feature of these attacks, overwhelming Ukrainian defenses. Despite the escalating threat, Ukrainian emergency services and ordinary citizens responded with remarkable courage and determination, demonstrating a steadfast commitment to protecting the population. The ongoing attacks underscore the immense human cost of the conflict and the urgent need for continued international support. Furthermore, Russia conducted a test of an experimental nuclear-powered missile, signaling a potential escalation of the conflict. The events highlight the precarious situation in Ukraine and the need for diplomatic solutions, while simultaneously showcasing the bravery and determination of the Ukrainian people in the face of relentless attacks. The focus remains on safeguarding civilian lives and critical infrastructure amidst the ongoing hostilities. Trump increases tariffs on Canada amidst trade tensions. President Donald Trump has announced a 10% increase in tariffs on Canadian goods, escalating trade tensions sparked by an Ontario government advertisement featuring excerpts from former President Ronald Reagan's 1987 speech criticizing tariffs. The move follows Trump's earlier termination of trade talks with Canada and a previous threat to impose a 100% tariff on Chinese rare earth minerals. The advertisement, purchased by the Ontario government and broadcast across major U.S. television networks, highlighted Reagan's argument that tariffs harm American workers and consumers, triggering trade wars. Responding to the escalation, Prime Minister Mark Carney stated Canada's readiness to continue trade discussions, emphasizing a focus on benefits for Canadian workers and families. Ontario Premier Doug Ford initially paused the advertising campaign, intending to resume talks after the World Series, but the ad continued to run during the games, prompting Trump's criticism of it as a fraud. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce expressed hope for constructive discussions with the U.S. administration, advocating for direct engagement. Despite these efforts, trade tensions persist, particularly concerning Canada's significant exports to the U.S., including autos, steel, aluminum, lumber, and energy. Canada's unemployment rate has risen to its highest point in 9 years, and there has been a notable decline in Canadian travel to the U.S. and American spirits exports. The U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, negotiated by Trump, continues to provide duty-free entry for goods compliant with the agreement. However, ongoing tariff threats have fueled expectations of significant changes to USMCA during its upcoming review. Both Trump and Carney are attending the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN Summit in Malaysia, seeking to resolve the escalating trade dispute through diplomatic channels and further negotiation. The situation underscores the continued importance of Canada as a major trading partner for the United States and highlights the potential economic consequences of trade disputes. Trump's Kuala Lumpur Peace Accord, a delicate step towards resolution. Recent events surrounding the Thai-Cambodian border dispute highlight a complex diplomatic effort spearheaded by former President Donald Trump. The core of the situation involves a long-standing territorial dispute between Thailand and Cambodia, marked by periodic clashes and unresolved differences. Trump played a central role in facilitating a ceasefire and a subsequent agreement, leveraging his personal interest and public claims of successfully ending conflicts. The Kuala Lumpur Peace Accord, renamed by Trump, represents a formal agreement signed during the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN Summit in Malaysia. The agreement focuses on key areas including the withdrawal of heavy weapons from the disputed border, the establishment of an interim observer team, and a procedure for clearing landmines. Furthermore, the accord includes the release of Cambodian prisoners of war and the deployment of Southeast Asian observers to monitor the situation. Trump framed the agreement as a significant achievement, asserting he has ended 8 wars since returning to office and publicly advocating for a Nobel Peace Prize nomination. He emphasized the importance of the deal for the prosperity and independence of the nations involved. The U.S. is also pursuing major trade agreements with both Thailand and Cambodia as part of the broader initiative. However, the agreement remains fragile. Thailand, a strong U.S. ally with a significant military, has resisted external intervention, while Cambodia has been more receptive to Trump's efforts. The Thai government has outlined 4 conditions Cambodia must meet: troop withdrawal, landmine removal, crackdown on cyber scam operations, and addressing encroachment by Cambodian citizens. The ceremony itself was notable for the death of Thai Queen Sirikit, the Queen Mother, which prompted Trump to offer condolences. The agreement's terminology remains a point of contention, with Trump referring to it as a peace deal, while the Thai government prefers the term declaration. The U.S. has implemented tariffs on goods from both countries as leverage in trade negotiations, further complicating the situation. Despite the progress, underlying tensions persist, and the long-term stability of the agreement remains uncertain. Georgia's uranium plot arrests and international security concerns. Recent developments in Georgia have highlighted a serious security breach, involving 3 Chinese nationals attempting to illegally acquire 2 kg of uranium. The State Security Service, SG of Georgia, uncovered the plot while one member of the group was actively seeking to purchase the radioactive material on the black market within the capital Tbilisi. Intelligence agencies identified the group's intentions to pay a substantial $400,300 for the uranium. The planned operation involved transporting the material from Georgia to China, utilizing Russia as a transit route. This clandestine activity immediately raised significant international security concerns, prompting a swift response from Georgian authorities. The arrests underscore the potential for illicit trafficking of nuclear materials and the need for robust safeguards against such activities. Following their apprehension, the 3 Chinese nationals pleaded not guilty during a court appearance in Tbilisi. As a precautionary measure, the court ordered their continued detention to prevent any attempts to escape the country. Georgia Today, the nation's public broadcaster, reported on the arrests and the ongoing legal proceedings. The investigation is ongoing, and authorities are working to determine the full scope of the operation and the potential implications. The incident highlights Georgia's role as a strategic location and the vigilance required to monitor and prevent the movement of sensitive materials across international borders. The case serves as a stark reminder of the risks associated with nuclear materials and the importance of international cooperation in combating illicit trafficking. U.S. strikes against drug trafficking vessels spark controversy and regional tensions, and the United States has intensified its maritime operations targeting suspected drug trafficking vessels, resulting in a significant escalation of tensions within the Caribbean and Pacific regions. Following a series of strikes since early September, the Trump administration, spearheaded by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, has conducted 10 attacks against ships linked to criminal organizations, most notably the Tren de Aragua. These operations have resulted in the deaths of at least 43 individuals, including 6 male narco-terrorists killed in a recent strike in the Caribbean Sea. The U.S. military's actions have been met with considerable legal and political scrutiny. Democratic and Republican members of Congress have voiced concerns regarding the legality of the strikes, questioning the administration's authority and the lack of conclusive evidence presented before initiating the attacks. Senator Rand Paul has specifically argued for congressional approval, highlighting the need for due process. President Trump maintains his administration's right to undertake these operations, asserting his legal authority and designating Tren de Aragua as a terrorist organization. He has suggested that further action against such vessels could involve seeking congressional authorization. Secretary of State Marco Rubio emphasized the need to curb drug trafficking within the United States. The strikes are widely believed to extend beyond simply disrupting drug trafficking networks. The ongoing animosity between the U.S. and Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, who accuses Trump of orchestrating drug trafficking, is a key factor. Maduro's government has vehemently condemned the U.S. actions as acts of aggression. The operations are creating a volatile situation, raising questions about international law, sovereignty, and the potential for further escalation in the region. The debate surrounding the legality and justification of these military interventions continues to dominate the narrative. Connolly, elected as Ireland's next president, Connolly has secured victory in Ireland's presidential election, marking a significant shift in political sentiment. The independent candidate, backed by left-wing parties including Sinn Féin, Labour, and the Social Democrats, garnered a landslide win against Fine Gael's Heather Humphreys and Fianna Fáil's Jim Gavin. The election outcome signifies a rejection of the established two-party system and reflects a desire for a president representing a broader range of perspectives. Connolly's campaign focused on themes of inclusion, equality, and social justice, resonating with voters across Ireland. The substantial number of spoiled votes, often containing anti-government messages, indicates widespread dissatisfaction with the current political landscape. Humphreys, the Fine Gael candidate, acknowledged the challenging campaign, including sectarian abuse directed at her family, highlighting the deep divisions within Irish society. Gavin's withdrawal from the race too late to remove his name from the ballot. The election's turnout is expected to be low, potentially mirroring the 2018 presidential election. The result demonstrates a desire for a president who transcends the traditional political divisions. Connolly's victory represents a commitment to a new direction for Ireland, one that prioritizes social progress and inclusivity. Key figures including Taoiseach Michael Martin, Sinn Féin in leader Mary Lou MacDonald, and Táil Neasta Simon Harris have offered congratulations to Connolly, recognizing the significance of her victory. The election's outcome is viewed as a pivotal moment, suggesting a potential realignment of Irish politics. The campaign's focus on social justice and the widespread support for Connolly indicate a renewed emphasis on these issues. The election has highlighted the need for a president who can unite a diverse nation and address its most pressing challenges. GOP anxiety grows over health care crisis amid shutdown. A growing sense of anxiety is permeating the Republican Party, surrounding the impending health care deadline and the potential consequences of inaction during the ongoing government shutdown. Key concerns center on the impending rise in health insurance premiums for millions of Americans, particularly as open enrollment for the Affordable Care Act, a CAVE, approaches. Republican lawmakers are increasingly worried about the political fallout, anticipating a negative impact on their chances in the upcoming November midterms. Several Republican members are openly criticizing the party's leadership for lacking a clear plan to address the situation. Pressure is mounting for a swift resolution, with many advocating for immediate action to prevent a surge in healthcare costs. The prolonged shutdown has exacerbated the problem, leaving little time to formulate a comprehensive strategy. Within the GOP, there's a significant divergence of opinion. While some, like Pennsylvania freshman David McCormick, are cautiously supporting a short-term ACA extension to mitigate immediate damage, others, including conservative figures like Tennessee's Tim Burchett, advocate for a complete overhaul of the program. Concerns are also rising about the financial implications of continued subsidies, with some Republicans warning of potential economic harm. The situation is further complicated by internal divisions within the party. Some conservative voices, such as Alabama's Tommy Tuberville, express outright opposition to the ACA and its associated funding. Others, while acknowledging the need for a temporary fix, insist on long-term reforms to stabilize the healthcare market. Amidst the chaos, Donald Trump has reportedly requested substantial financial support, fueling speculation about his potential involvement in brokering a solution. However, Republican lawmakers are hesitant to cede control of the negotiations, fearing it could further complicate the situation. The party's internal disagreements and the looming deadline are creating a volatile environment, raising serious questions about the future of healthcare policy in the United States. Migrant sex offender released from prison in error arrested in London. A migrant sex offender, Hadush Kibatu, mistakenly released from HMP Chelmsford, was arrested in Finsbury Park, London, after a 2-day manhunt. Kibatu, previously sentenced for sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl and a woman in Epping, was due for deportation following an error in his release by prison staff. Justice Secretary David Lammy ordered an independent inquiry into the incident, emphasizing the severity of the crimes and the need to prevent similar occurrences. Following his release, Kibatu traveled to East London, spotted in Dalston and Stratford, utilizing CCTV footage to track his movements. Police, including the Metropolitan Police and British Transport Police, initiated a widespread search, utilizing resources from the Specialist Crime Command. The arrest occurred after a member of the public reported seeing a man resembling Kibatu at a bus stop. The initial release sparked immediate concern, with Sir Keir Starmer calling it totally unacceptable and demanding Kibatu's immediate capture and deportation. A prison officer was suspended pending investigation, with senior staff acknowledging a series of mistakes likely contributed to the error, citing potential overwork and staff shortages. The investigation highlighted a significant lapse in procedures, with concerns raised about the checks performed before Kibatu's release. The public outcry led to calls for a full inquiry and prompted the Home Secretary to order enhanced security protocols across all prisons. Kibatu's arrest triggered protests outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, where he had been residing. During his trial, he had attempted to kiss a teenage girl and made explicit comments, leading to a 12-month custodial sentence, including time served awaiting trial. He was also given a 5-year sexual harm prevention order and ordered to sign the sex offenders register. The Metropolitan Police, Essex Police, and BTP worked collaboratively to locate Kibatu, utilizing CCTV and tracking his movements across London. The investigation revealed a lapse in the discharge process, with the prison service launching a full review. The incident underscored the importance of rigorous oversight and adherence to established protocols within the UK's prison system. The public was reassured that public protection remained the top priority, with authorities committed to swiftly apprehending the offender and ensuring he is returned to custody. Kamala Harris hints at 2028 presidential run following recent reflections. Kamala Harris has expressed a potential intention to seek the presidency again in 2028, following recent reflections on her 2024 campaign and subsequent concerns regarding Joe Biden's decision to run for re-election. In an interview with the BBC's Laura Quensberg, Harris acknowledged a period of introspection, specifically questioning whether she should have urged Biden to withdraw from the race. She admitted to reflecting on the possibility of a conversation, driven by worries about his capacity to endure the grueling demands of a presidential campaign, particularly against a seasoned opponent like Donald Trump. The core of her concern wasn't about Biden's ability to fulfill the duties of commander-in-chief, but rather his stamina and energy levels required to campaign effectively. She recognized the distinction between running for office and the sustained commitment of the presidency. Harris's book, 107 Days, highlighted her belief that Biden's decision should not have been solely based on ego or ambition, and she now admits she questioned whether she should have raised her concerns with him directly. Adding to the complexities, allegations surrounding Biden's physical condition emerged in Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book, Original Sin, suggesting that individuals close to him attempted to conceal his deterioration. However, Biden's aides vehemently denied these claims, asserting there was no evidence of mental incapacity affecting his ability to perform the job. Furthermore, Harris revealed her continued consideration of another run, marking her strongest indication to date of a potential 2028 bid. This admission underscores the ongoing debate surrounding Biden's political future and the potential for a significant shift in the Democratic Party's leadership. The issue of whether others within Biden's circle should have challenged his decision remains a central point of discussion. Schwarzenegger criticizes redistricting efforts across the U.S. Former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger has strongly condemned the ongoing efforts to redraw congressional districts across the United States, characterizing it as a war of cheating. Speaking on CNN's A State of the Union, Schwarzenegger voiced concern over the coordinated attempts by Republican state lawmakers, largely at the behest of President Donald Trump, to influence the outcome of next year's midterm elections by ensuring Democratic control of the House of Representatives. These efforts are focused on states like Texas, Missouri, and North Carolina, where new Republican-friendly districts have already been created, with Indiana and Kansas also considering map revisions. The core of the controversy centers on California's Proposition 50, a ballot initiative aimed at replacing maps drawn by an independent commission with new maps potentially benefiting the Democratic Party and allowing them to flip up to 5 GOP-held U.S. House seats. This initiative is slated for a special election on November 4th. Schwarzenegger, a proponent of the independent commission that originally drew the state's lines, expressed his dismay at the competitive redistricting race. California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, defends Proposition 50 as foundational, dismissing Schwarzenegger's criticism as unnecessary. Newsom argues for a focus on democratic performance rather than manipulating district boundaries. Despite their differing viewpoints, Schwarzenegger and Newsom maintain a friendly relationship. Schwarzenegger emphasizes the importance of competitive performance between parties, suggesting a focus on winning elections rather than manipulating the redistricting process. The overarching theme is a concern about partisan influence in the electoral process and a preference for a meritocratic approach based on political strength rather than geographical advantage. The situation highlights a broader national debate concerning fair representation and the potential for political manipulation in redistricting efforts. The East Wing demolition, a legacy of change at the White House. The recent demolition of the White House's East Wing has sparked considerable controversy and mourning, reflecting a significant shift in presidential priorities and architectural vision. President Donald Trump's decision to dismantle the historic wing to construct a sprawling, opulent ballroom has drawn criticism for disregarding the wing's rich history and symbolic importance. The East Wing, a fixture of the White House for over a century, served a multifaceted role, evolving from a carriage entrance to a vital operational space. Throughout its existence, it hosted countless social events, including state dinners, receptions, and Super Bowl viewings, solidifying its place as a hub for diplomatic and domestic engagement. First ladies utilized the East Wing as their own private domain, and it was a frequent entry point for visitors. Historically, the wing functioned as a soft power center, distinct from the more politically charged West Wing. It housed the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, utilized during crises such as the 9/11 attacks and protests. The wing also contained a movie theater where presidents watched films, and a space where visitors could write letters to service members. Key figures, including former Presidents George W. Bush and Bill Clinton, utilized the East Wing for important events, such as practicing State of the Union addresses. The wing's evolution saw the construction of the Jacqueline Kennedy Garden, designed by I.M. Pei, and the presence of Christmas decorations overseen by Melania Trump. Despite the historical significance and widespread disapproval, President Trump insists on the ballroom's construction, funded by private donors, to reflect the nation's glory. While the White House claims to be preserving historic artifacts, many longtime admirers express sadness over the loss of a legacy they believe no amount of money can replace. The demolition represents a deliberate departure from established traditions and a prioritization of a grandiose, self-serving architectural statement. BBC investigation leads to arrest of charity boss accused of exploiting refugees. A Turkish charity owner, Saadettin Karagöz, has been arrested following a BBC News investigation into allegations of sexual abuse and exploitation of vulnerable Syrian refugees. Karagöz, who headed the Hope Charity Store, a local organization operating in Ankara's Altındag area, is accused of offering aid including supplies like rice, milk, and nappies in exchange for sexual favors. 3 women identified as Medina, Nada, and Batul came forward with harrowing accounts detailing how Karagaz manipulated their desperation for assistance into situations of coercion and abuse. Each woman described being lured to a secluded area within the charity's premises, often behind a curtain, to receive aid. Karagaz allegedly used this opportunity to inappropriately touch or attempt to sexually assault them. Fear of stigma, deportation, and potential repercussions prevented them from reporting the incidents to the police earlier. The charity, which had received recognition and national media attention, operated from 2014 until recently, rebranding as My Home Meal Association in March of this year. Despite denials, Karagaz's actions have been substantiated by multiple testimonies. 7 former employees also reported witnessing or hearing accounts of abuse. Previous accusations in 2019 and 2025 failed to result in charges due to a lack of witnesses and evidence. However, following the BBC's investigation, 2 additional women came forward, leading to his arrest and current detention while awaiting trial. The women expressed immense relief and hope that Karagaz's arrest will provide strength and courage to other women facing similar exploitation, highlighting the devastating impact of his actions and the importance of holding perpetrators accountable. Karagaz's health conditions were cited as a defense, but the accusations remain serious and are actively being investigated.